Hey, everybody. It's your old buddy, Uncle Rich, for Who's Telling the Truth. Guys, today, this is show number 226. Today's date is July 23rd, 2018, and the name of the show is Mr. Fabian. And it's going to seem a little peculiar, but guys, we're going to do this in honor of Jordan Fabian, who is one of the first journalists to actually have the Galaducci's to question Sarah Huckabee at the White House. And guys, you know, you talk about the show and the amount of fun that we have doing the show, and it's just amazing how we make things happen. I mean, it's a small little show. We do it from Danbury, Connecticut. We do it once a week. Small little show, but it has an effect. And you're going to say, what do you mean it has an effect? What could your show possibly do, you know, to dramatically affect the country, to affect the country dramatically? And guys, I'm going to play you. We're going to, in order to show you what kind of effect we have, we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine. And we're going to go back to last week because the show that we did was called Trumpski. So we're going to go back to last week's show and we're going to show you how our little show can change the country. So Judy, clip number 2, please. Watch this,
CNN's
guys.
fake news. I don't take questions. I don't take questions from CNN.
CNN
CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. John Roberts of Fox. Let's go to a real.
John
Let's go to a
Roberts
real
of
network.
Fox.
John, let's go.
Well, we're a real network too, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Guys, if John Roberts from Fox had any Galaducci's, he would have said, thank you, Mr. President, and he would have handed the microphone over to Jim Acosta. And he would have said, here, ask your question. Now, guys, all right, Judy, come back to me. Now, guys, on the next clip, we're going to show you exactly what he did. So, you know, Jordan, actually, he said, pay attention to the clip because you'll see it's a little hard to hear, but you'll see it in writing. So, Judy, let's have clip number 3, please.
Has been once again, Hallie, I'm moving on to Jordan.
Now
Jordan,
what? She gets cut off.
So she was trying to call on Jordan Fabian of The Hill. Here's what happened next.
Sorry, Hallie, go ahead if you want.
Thanks, Jordan. You said actually,
Haley, go ahead if you want. See that, guys? He threw the ball back to her. Instead of letting her get cut off, he said, you know what? I'm going to be part of the team. And I'm not going to let, if you're going to play ball with us, you're going to play ball with all of us. We're not going to let you separate people and segregate us and take your opinions. So, guys, I tell you, I applaud him, and that's why we're naming the show after him. Because I tell you, you know, if someone, you know, should be defended, it's a guy like him. But, you know, guys, sometimes instead of calling the show Fabian, maybe we should call it Frasconi. Because I want to get credit for putting the idea in his head. And, guys, Uncle Joey's going to say, Rich, you can't take credit for that. You didn't put that in his head. Joey, try to prove that I didn't. And that's the fun of being able to make a statement like that, because I can get away with it. For that brief moment, I can be a foxtitude. I can do the same thing that you hear over and over again on Fox News. I can mislead you very subtly, but I can do it and have fun. So, Judy, let's have clip number 4, and you'll say, why? Maybe we should call it, instead of a Fabian, maybe we should call it a Frasconi. So number 4, Judy.
If somebody should defer next week in the White House press corps, maybe they'll be calling it a Fabian. Like they pulled a Fabian. They just decided they would surrender their time. I don't know. We'll have to watch.
So guys, maybe they'll call it a Fabian, But you know what? He deserves credit. But where does he get the credit from? We'll prove our point with clip number 5. Judy? You're trying to push Uncle Rich over the edge, right? You're trying to push me over the edge. The next clip we're going to show you is just, with Trump and how, him and his fake news and his nonsense. So, Judy, let's have, let's see, clip number 30, please.
John Roberts, go ahead, John. No. John Roberts, go ahead.
Watch this,
CNN's
guys.
fake news. I don't take questions. I don't take questions from CNN. CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. John Roberts of Fox. Let's go to a real. Let's go to a real network. John, let's go.
Well, we're a real network too, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Guys, let it go, Judy. If John Roberts from Fox had any Galaducci's, he would have said, "Thank you, Mr. President," and he would have handed the microphone over to Jim Acosta. And he would have said, "Here, ask your question." And he would have had a set of Galaducci's. He would have said, "Trump, we're not going to deal with this nonsense anymore." And guys, that's the way to do it. We're not going to deal with it anymore. You're going to try to give us the double reverse. We're not going to let you get away with it. It's that simple. It's that simple. And guys like Fabian need to be commended. And we need to give them credit. They deserve credit because they're not going to let Trump and his administration get away with the nonsense. And now we're going to play the full clip, which Smirkanish, and they go through the whole thing. So guys, I tell you, this is a lot of fun, but you'll see how they try, how Fox and the Republican Party, how they try to create deception. So, Judy, let's have clip number 6, please.
President's visit to Chequers, the country home of British Prime Minister Theresa May. He ignored questions from CNN's own Jim Acosta and chose to call on John Roberts of Fox News.
That's such dishonest reporting because, of course, it happens to be NBC, which is possibly worse than CNN.
Mr. President, since you attacked CNN, can I ask you a question?
John Roberts, go ahead, John. No. John Roberts, go ahead. CNN's fake news. I don't take questions. I don't take questions from CNN. CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. John Roberts of Fox.
So Roberts then asked his question without making any reference to what the president had just said. He was criticized for not calling out the president, but arguably had shown loyalty to his employer first. Then came this moment on Wednesday in the White House briefing room. NBC's Hallie Jackson was quizzing Sarah Sanders about the White House claim that when the president had said no when asked about whether Putin had interfered in the election, he was just saying no to any more questions. Sanders tried to move on to the next questioner. Here's the end of their back and forth.
When he sees that he's misspoken, he comes out and he says, Jordan.
Follow up on
Sorry, I'm
Josh.
going to
The
keep
second
moving.
question,
Jordan,
you told
go ahead.
Josh, just to follow up on my second question, Sarah.
Sorry,
you told Josh,
you've asked
I did
two.
have-
I'm going to move on to Jordan.
You told Josh the president has been
Once again,
publicly
Hallie, I'm
critical
moving
of
on to
Vladimir.
Jordan. Jordan, go ahead.
So she was trying to call on Jordan Fabian of The Hill. Here's what happened next.
Sorry, Hallie, go ahead if you want.
Thanks, Jordan. You said to
Actually,
Josh,
I'm
the
gonna take a
president has
question
been
from
publicly
Jordan.
critical of Vladimir Putin. I just want to know when, because I don't think any of us remember, at least I don't remember a time when the president has publicly called up Vladimir Putin.
I think by stating the fact that the president said that Russia interfered with our election, that's a pretty bold call out of another world leader. Jordan, go ahead.
Joining me now is Jordan Fabian. Hey, Jordan, gutsy on your part insofar as when you defer, maybe Sarah Sanders isn't going to come back to you with another question.
Good question.
Yeah, Michael, that
Good
thought
question.
entered my mind right after I had done that. But in the moment, I viewed it as a professional courtesy to Hallie. All of us in that room are trying to get our questions in, and follow-up questions are a very important part of trying to get to the bottom of some of these answers we're trying to get. So, Hallie hadn't finished yet. I've been covering the White House for 3.5 years. Reporters have always had the chance to ask follow-up questions in those briefings, and I thought it was important for her to be able to finish her line of questioning before the questioning moved to me.
So as I was watching you on Wednesday, of course, I was thinking about Jim Acosta and John Roberts. Were you thinking about the way that had gone down in the United Kingdom?
You know, I honestly wasn't, Michael. When you're sitting in the chair in the briefing room, you're basically just trying to get your questions straight and make sure you don't sound like a moron on television, quite frankly. So, you know, I was just trying to get myself in the mindset to ask my question to Sarah Sanders, and then this interaction happened. And look, I'm not going to lie. We've talked a lot in, behind the scenes about press corps unity, about, making sure all of us can do our jobs. And in that moment, I thought deferring to Hallie was the right thing to do.
Okay, and that, of course, is my big question. Is this a sign of things to come? You just said you've had conversations with other members of the White House press corps. Do you think this may unfold in press conferences to come?
I hope so, that in the sense that, all of us in the White House press corps have respect for one another and do our best to make sure we can all do our jobs. I sort of view it in a little bit of a different light. There's this dynamic now, partially because of how the president treats the media, that the media is the opposition party and we are tasked with, defeating him. That's not how we view it. We are just trying to do our jobs to report on the president and the White House and tell readers what's going on. And really what I tried to do was make sure that one of my colleagues had the chance to do her job. And hopefully, in the future, if it happens.
Duty. I mean, I would like to think that you owe a duty to the American people, but you actually owe a duty to the Hill. So if you defer to Hallie, and now Sarah, angry at you for having done so, doesn't come back to you, and if I'm your editor at the Hill, I'm going to say to you, hey, Jordan, I mean, way to take a bullet, but you never got your question. And we want you to be on record. Thoughts?
That you hit the nail on the head, Michael. You're, as a reporter in that room, you're serving different masters. So it's a very tough balancing act, when you're in that moment. Luckily for me, I think Sarah, did the right thing and called on me afterwards, so I was able to get my question in. But that's part of the dynamic in the briefing room that I think a lot of viewers don't really get, is that when Sarah goes to somebody else and somebody asks a different question, it's not a slight to the other reporter in the room. It's that all of us are covering different stories, and you were trying to get that in. So again, it's a very tough balancing act, but I'm glad it worked out last week.
When a guest goes on all the Sunday morning shows, they call it a Ginsburg.
Yes.
Because of back in the intern scandal, her
Ginsburg.
lawyer did all the shows. If somebody should defer next week in the White House press corps, maybe they'll be calling it a Fabian. Like they pulled a Fabian. They just decided they would surrender their time. I don't know. We'll have to watch. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Michael.
So, guys, you can call it a Fabian or you can call it a Frasconi. You call it anything you want, but the one thing you want to do is you want to call them out. When they lie to you and they try to give you the double reverse and they try to pull the wool over your eyes, guess what? Pull a Fabian on them. Don't let them get away with it. It's a professional courtesy. And what more could you want than to be professional? And guys, the next clip is from a professional as you can get. She's a stenographer for the White House. And guess what she did? She quit because she couldn't take Trump's lies anymore. I know you're going to say, Uncle Rich, come on. People wouldn't quit because the president was lying to them. Guys, I won't tell it to you. I'll let her tell you. So, Judy, clip number 7, please.
Why did you quit? I quit because I couldn't be proud of where I worked anymore. I was so proud to serve under the Obama administration, and I felt like President Trump was lying to the American people and also not even trying to lie, like not even trying to tell the truth. He wasn't even going the extra mile to have the stenographers in the room.
So she quit because the President of the United States is not even trying to tell the truth. Uncle Joey! Uncle Joey, when are you going to throw in the towel, babe? Come on, when are you guys going to throw in? Eddie Shaluk, have you had enough yet? Have you had enough yet? Ronnie Smith, you going to call it quits, kid? When are you guys going to throw in the towel? When are you finally going to admit that you got conned by the Don? And guys, the next clip is going to be, she's just going to tell you exactly what happened at the White House. And you're going to sit there and go, wow. But hey, listen, there's only one Trump, and he's the president. So, Judy, let's have some fun with clip number 8, please.
If what? A stenographer had been present?
If a stenographer had been present, or if the stenographer was present, President Trump could have just said, hey, check the transcript. This is exactly what I said. During the Obama administration, President Obama would always just say, check the transcript.
Source?
There's context.
Explain all of this. Explain what you had a fascinating job, okay, that you were always in the corner of the Oval. So you were unobtrusive, but you were recording everything. And explain before President Trump, historically, why that was so important and how, for instance, President Obama used you.
Sure. So White House stenographers are basically the first line of defense against the press to make sure a reporter doesn't exit the Oval Office and misquote the president. So stenographers would go in, we'd put our recorders down on the table, we'd find our chair on the other side of the Oval Office, and we'd get to sit and listen. And so for President Reagan through President Obama, the White House really utilized stenographers to make sure there was a record of everything the president said to the press.
And is it just for the press? Are stenographers just there as that check and balance on the press, or are stenographers present for all Oval Office meetings?
Not all Oval Office meetings, because we did want the president to be able to speak to other heads of state with a sense of honesty and not having to have everything on the record. There needed to be some sense of, like, this is just between us. But at the same time, President Obama was really good at not speaking on the record unless he was speaking on the record. Whereas President Trump likes to say, oh, this was off the record, or there's no recording of this, or we record everything. He's just constantly going back and forth, backtracking.
So then what happened when President Trump took office and you were still a White House stenographer? And then how did things change?
Well, President Trump, we quickly learned, does not like microphones near his face, which is difficult because as a stenographer, we often had to do that. And so his White House and his press office often didn't include us in meetings with the press. So his first interview, there was no stenographer present. And even since then, even if a stenographer is present, he doesn't often say, check the transcript, because the transcript will reveal the truth.
What happened when Bill O'Reilly came for an interview at the White House?
Bill O'Reilly came for an interview. I covered that. And Hope Hicks came down and actually retrieved Bill, and he went and spent an hour with President Trump before doing the interview. And I'd never seen anything like that with 5 years of President Obama. Never during the day would President Obama use the sitting president's time to talk to an interviewer before the actual interview.
And it defeats the whole purpose of you being a stenographer. If they're going to go behind closed doors and have this entire meeting, then what's the point of ever recording it for posterity?
That's right. It also makes the president vulnerable, because then the press can say whatever they want. And that's why I loved whenever President Obama said, check the transcript. It was basically saying, check the truth. We have a recording of it.
You write in an op-ed, a New York Times op-ed, Mr. Trump likes to call anyone who disagrees with him fake news. But if he's really the victim of so much inaccurate reporting, why is he so averse to having the facts recorded and transcribed? It's clear the White House stenographers do not serve his administration, but rather his adversary, the truth. What do you mean?
I mean, if President Trump was really interested in fighting fake news, he would have a stenographer present and also would have that transcript ready to go and say, hey, here's this. We have the transcript. We can just refer to that. And that would quickly shut down any accusations about fake news. Instead, he leaves himself vulnerable to it by having off-the-record interviews with Bill O'Reilly and then having a recording about talking about Theresa May and then disputing it later.
Why did you quit?
I quit because I couldn't be proud of where I worked anymore. I was so proud to serve under the Obama administration, and I felt like President Trump was lying to the American people and also not even trying to lie, like not even trying to tell the truth. He wasn't even going the extra mile to have the stenographers in the room.
Beck Stein, the book is From the Corner of the Oval It's a great read. You have a great story. Thanks so much for being with us.
Wow. Could you imagine being privy to some of those transcripts? Oh, mama. I would love to give Trump the old bada bing overdose. But did you see, before O'Reilly interviewed him, O'Reilly and Trump spent an hour together, alone. And you tell me Trump ain't playing with a fixed deck. You know what I mean? The table's tilted with him. I mean, come on. Yeah, I'd want a transcript. I'd want to see the transcript. But, you know, also there's another guy who'd want to see a transcript, and that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I tell you, he ain't too happy with Trump because Trump acted like a wet noodle on the international stage when he was Putin's puppet. So, Judy, let's see what Arnold had to say with clip number 9, please.
President Trump, I just saw your press conference with President Putin, and it was embarrassing. I mean, you stood there like a little wet noodle, like a little fanboy. I mean, I was asking myself, when are you going to ask him for an autograph or for a selfie or something like that? I mean, you literally sold out at this press conference our intelligence community, our justice system, and worst of all, our country. You're the president of the United States. You shouldn't do that. I mean, what's the matter with you? I mean, whatever happened to the strong words or to the strength of Ronald Reagan when he stood there at the Berlin Wall and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. What happened to all that?
You shouldn't do that. What's the matter with you? And you, Arnold. But guys, I want to tell you, everybody's confused, and even Fox News is confused. And just listen, we got a beautiful little clip of the nonsense that goes on at Fox News. And I'll tell you, when Fox News is confused, everybody's confused. So Judy, let's have clip number 10, please.
This was the time and the place for the president to look Putin squarely in the eye and said, you will be punished for what you did in 2016 and don't ever think about doing that again.
But he didn't. And that's what made it disgusting. That's what made his performance disgusting. I'm sorry, this is the only way I feel. It's not a right or left thing to me. It's just wrong. A U.S. president on foreign soil talking to our biggest enemy or adversary or competitor, I don't know how we define them these days, is essentially letting the guy get away with this and not even, offering a mild criticism. That sets us back a lot.
You have been watching perhaps one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president at a summit in front of a Russian leader, certainly that I've ever seen.
Well, I'm shaking my head like everyone else you've spoken to in the last 30 minutes or so, because I've been here for 30 years. I came to Washington in the final months of the Reagan administration, and I have never seen an American president simply surrender to the leader of Russia. You should call this the Surrender Summit.
The former CIA Director John Brennan, who has been a fierce critic of President Trump for quite some time, has just tweeted calling President Trump's press conference performance treasonous, saying that it exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors, and that he is wholly in the pocket of Putin. This from the former CIA Director of the United States.
He used this platform to attack his own FBI, to dismiss or undercut his own Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, who he named there, who gave him the consensus view of the intelligence agencies that this was election meddling and a threat here. I mean, there was no substance on Syria. There was no substance on Ukraine. There was no substance on any of the things that the U.S. and Russia should be working on, including on nuclear arms. This was just President Trump speaking about himself.
And Margaret, what message does that send to your own intelligence community when you're on the world stage, and that is your assessment of this investigation?
I was messaging with some U.S. officials during this, and I'm turning off the television as a response. I mean, this is people are, it's a punch in the gut.
We do now have a statement just in from Senator John McCain. I want to read it to you in its entirety because it is a powerful statement. Senator McCain says, today's press conference in Helsinki was one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in memory. The damage inflicted by President Trump's naivete, egotism, false equivalence, and sympathy for autocrats is difficult to calculate, but it is clear that the summit in Helsinki was a tragic mistake. Senator McCain went on to say President Trump proved not only unable, but unwilling to stand up to Putin. He and Putin seemed to be speaking from the same script, as the president made a conscious choice to defend a tyrant against the fair questions of a free press and to grant Putin an uncontested platform to spew and lies to the world. No prior president has ever abased himself more abjectly before a tyrant.
Guys, the one guy said this was a punch in the gut to the American public. This wasn't a punch in the gut. This was a kick in the balls. Let's be honest with each other. When your president stands up next to Putin and defends Putin, what more do you have to say? Perhaps Trish Reagan will sum it up better. She's a big Foxstitute. She's been with Fox for a long time, but even this pushed her over the edge. And hopefully, people like Uncle Joey, they'll finally throw the towel in and say, listen, I can't support this clown anymore. So let's see what a logical, normal thinking Republican, let's see how they react to Trump. So Judy, clip number 11, please.
Let me tell you how I went into my day today. I looked at all the mainstream media headlines, and they were all blasting President Trump before his meeting with Putin, this big meeting. I want you to see some of these headlines. They basically said, don't do this, right? New York Times, just sitting down with Trump, Putin comes out ahead. They didn't want him sitting down in the first place. The Washington Post writes Trump is now repaying Putin for helping him win the presidency. That's an op-ed there. Bloomberg, it goes on. You get the idea. In other words, the mainstream media did not want this meeting to happen. And I had really hoped I could say that they were wrong. I thought that maybe I could, at this moment in time, say they were wrong, because this was an opportunity for our president to get up there on stage and look Vladimir Putin in the eye and say, you're not going to mess with us again. But he didn't. In fact, he basically said he didn't buy what his own intelligence community was telling him. This was clearly not his best performance. He's done a whole lot better than this. He should have defended us. He should have defended his own intelligence community.
Defended his own country. You got
Or just don't take the meeting. Don't go to Helsinki if you can't look the guy in the eye and tell him what's what.
That a girl.
You know, here's the question, by the way, that somebody ought to have prepped our president on. He ought to have known this one was coming, and he ought to have thought long and hard about how to answer it. Roll the tape.
Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe? My second question is, would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016?
Boy, that's the question
warn him to never do it again?
So let me just say that we have two thoughts. You have groups that are wondering why the FBI never took the server. Why haven't they taken the server? Why was the FBI told to leave the office of the Democratic National Committee? With that being said, all I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
Whoa. And then it gets worse. He takes suddenly a sharp left turn and starts going back to the whole Hillary Clinton thing. Here we go.
Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? 33,000 emails gone, just gone. I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily. I think it's a disgrace that we can't get Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
I don't get it.
I don't get it
All
either.
of your intelligence agencies are telling you that the Russians interfered in our election. Now, big difference between them interfering and them actually having any kind of effect. There's also a big difference, huge difference, in them interfering and the Trump campaign colluding. Two separate things. But when everyone is in agreement that they did interfere, and somehow you're up there on the world stage suggesting otherwise, suggesting that, in fact, Vladimir Putin may be telling the truth and your own team isn't, what has happened?
What has happened? You brought Uncle Rich to the table. That's what happened. I used to be a mild-mannered central vac installer. Now you're driving me crazy with this stuff. But guys, you know, the next clip is going to be about, we always like to be fair and balanced on this show. And instead of being, so we want to try to be fair and balanced instead of fairly biased. But guys, the next clip is going to show you some Trump supporters in Wisconsin. And listen to the logic when they defend Trump. Just listen. I mean, listen to these knuckleheads. So, Judy, let's have clip number 12, please. They don't care.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin, a county that flipped from blue to red in 2016, many here say the president is still their guy.
I know there's a lot of backlash going on now, especially when he said, well, I said I didn't, and I didn't, but
A lot
whatever.
of people weren't happy.
Yeah, but I'm totally in support of him.
And why? Why are you still supporting him?
Because he's an entrepreneur. He's a businessman, working class person, president. He's trying to make this country great again.
Bull, he's trying
Even
to make
local
his
Republican
pocketbook
leaders
great.
like Aaron Decker aren't wavering. Do you support the president? Yes.
Do you continue to support him despite this week?
Yeah.
Great to be with you.
Fueling outrage by publicly supporting Russia over U.S. intelligence agencies. The president is now trying to backtrack from his controversial statements in Helsinki after taking some serious heat, even in traditionally supportive places.
This has got to be the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed.
He should have defended us.
So what do his supporters think? When he kind of backtracked those statements today, did that surprise you?
Well, he did get some Republican backlash on that, and I think they just didn't hear the whole story before they started coming after him, so he was just trying to appease them a little bit.
Some voters in red states are praising Mr. Trump's approach to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
What they've been doing in years past, being enemies with him and just not talking to him or anything, hasn't worked. So why not try something new?
The president's clarification that he misspoke and now accepts U.S. intelligence reports appears to be aimed at quelling the firestorm inside the Beltway, easing doubts of some Republicans.
I'm just glad he clarified it. I can't read his intentions.
Close ally and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who criticized the president, now says President Trump did the right thing today in clarifying his comments. And while lawmakers worry about America's place on the world stage, some Trump voters aren't concerned.
I'm not one bit worried about the rest of the world. They ain't worried about us, so, I'm not worried one bit about what the rest of the world thinks.
And Morgan, you talked to those people, obviously. They weren't concerned with the backlash, but were they concerned with the Republican backlash against the president?
They were not, Hoda. In fact, they doubled down because they said their allegiance is to the president. In fact, they said they were upset with their elected officials because they feel like they were not getting the job they were sent there to do. They weren't completing it because they weren't standing behind the president 100%.
Guys, it's really hard to believe. I mean, the one thing I have to say about Trump supporters is they're loyal. I mean, going to a Trump rally is like going to a WWE wrestling event. You know, and Trump is the main feature. I mean, these people, you know, they don't think, they just react. And, you know, what they're starting to react to is some of the tariffs and some of the taxes that Trump has put into place. And guys, there's a nail company in Missouri that's about to go out of business. They were the largest manufacturer of nails in the country. And because of Trump's tariffs, guys, they're probably going to go out of business. And there's over 500 people in this town, and they depend on this nail manufacturing plant. But not only the nail manufacturers, think about all the other jobs associated with the nail manufacturing. You know, you need people to cut the hair of the people. You need people to make pizzas for these people. You need people to babysit your kids. These people lose their jobs. All those other jobs go out the window with them. And the town collapses. Why? Because Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a businessman. He's a con man. And you know, he just keeps proving it. And when is middle America finally going to fess up and admit it themselves? Well, guys, what will happen is when the economy collapses and there's no more jobs, they're going to say, you know what? Maybe it wasn't a smart idea to vote for Trump. So, Judy, let's prove my point with clip number 13, please.
Companies are turning to other countries to buy cheaper nails. Places like China, Taiwan, India, and Turkey. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard joins me now from Poplar Bluff. President Trump's 25% tariff on steel from Mexico is weighing heavy on factories across the United States. Companies are now faced with a spike in price for raw steel, resulting in a 30% price hike for nails made right here in the U.S. of A. Because there is no tariff on nails imported into the United States, home builders, lumber yards, and buying supply companies are turning to other countries to buy cheaper nails. Places like China, Taiwan, India, and Turkey. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard joins me now from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. That is where the largest producer of nails in the entire country is located. All right, Vaughn, I know you've been speaking to factory workers at Mid-Continental Nail Company. What are they telling you?
Stephanie, Poplar Bluff is a town of 17,000. By all accounts, this is an American success story, an American business success story. Started back here in 1987. 500 employees work out of here, and there's a lot of jobs out of that, right? The boxing company down the road. There's companies that rely on this industry here. And talking with the employees, many of them that have worked here for years. Chris Pratt, he's become the operations manager here. He oversees the 500 employees here. But what they've seen is since 2012, a 50% increase in the number of employees that they have been able to have here. So by all accounts, this was a thriving business. But just this month alone, they have seen orders canceled, 50% of them just this month alone, because there is no import on nails. But there's that 25% tariff on those steel imports. This is what Chris said when we talked to him just yesterday afternoon.
We have eliminated 60 positions.
60 positions.
Yes.
You have employees we just talked to that are anxious.
Correct. They're scared. They have fear. Fear for their jobs. You know, rightly so.
And that's in your guys' hands.
I consider every one of these jobs in Poplar Bluff my responsibility personally.
Your message to Washington, D.C. then?
Save our jobs. Save Poplar Bluff jobs. Save American manufacturing jobs. And give us the exclusions we need. Grant those exclusions. Put those exclusions on the top that we filed. And put us back to work.
President Trump, if you hear this, you know, this job means a lot to this community, to the people that work here, to the suppliers we have. It affects more than just the 500 jobs we have here. So please help.
Stephanie, talking to these men and women here yesterday, a good number of them voted for the president. They said they still have that hope in him. They said that they just don't think that he understands the unintended consequences of what's happened. Well, they said that they understand and appreciate that he's trying to help other parts of American industry. He said that they had their jobs. They knew what they were doing. They were able to come here from 7 to 5 on a daily basis, rely on good-paying jobs that they were going to be able to raise their kids and their grandkids on. Just this plant alone. This is the paper tape nail plant. They shut this down this month because of all the orders being canceled. Chris, he told me, he said, it's like having the lights turned off, and then he paused, and it quite literally is around here. Stephanie?
Wow, Vaughn, thank you so much. I'm so glad you went there and talked to those people on the ground.
Guys, you know, when Trump was campaigning, he told everybody what a financial genius he was. He could do things that nobody else could do. He was a negotiator. He was going to give us health care. It was going to be better and cheaper. The guy's a fraud. Uncle Joey, is the picture becoming clear yet, kid? I mean, when are you finally going to admit and say, you know, maybe we did make a mistake? Not maybe. You made a mistake. Maybe it's about time you admitted it. And guys, the next clip is going to show you how the Republican Party uses their wisdom and they try to redistribute wealth. And how many times have we heard that on Fox News? They're trying to redistribute wealth. They want to give more money to the poor people. They want them to be able to get food stamps and welfare and this and that and everything for free. No. Guys, people don't want things for free, but there are a better way to pay for things. And right now, the problem is the money's going to the top. When it comes to Trump's tax cuts, 83% of Trump's tax cuts over the next decade go to the 1%. Yeah, they threw some crumbs out to the simple folk for the first couple of years. They gave people a little bit of a tease. But guys, that all goes away, and the money goes to the top. And why does this happen? Because the people with the money are the people that buy the politicians that vote. Is it starting to make sense? Are you getting the idea? Joey, am I getting through to you? And guys, let's see what redistribution of wealth is all about and where the wealth is really going. So, Judy, clip 14, please.
Watch your wallets. While Trump rails against immigrants and insults our allies abroad, House Republicans are quietly crafting a plan to gut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Their latest budget proposal calls for deep cuts to these programs in order to balance the federal budget. Now, remember, many of the same Republicans last year dismissed concerns about the deficit when they passed $1.5 trillion in tax cuts, primarily for the wealthy and corporations. Folks, this has been their strategy from the start. Number one, push for massive tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations by claiming middle class and working families will benefit. Well, that's baloney. Corporations are already using their savings to buy back their shares of their own stock at a record pace and increase executive pay. And then number two, claim the tax cuts will pay for themselves, dismissing concerns about the deficit. Republican lawmakers even bashed the credibility of nonpartisan analysts when they found the tax plan would increase the deficit. And then number three, use the massive hole they've blown in the budget to justify deep cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the GOP tax cuts have already worsened the budget deficit. Analysts now project the deficit will reach $1 trillion by 2020. Republicans in Congress have long had their eyes on cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. You see, their goal is to pull off a giant redistribution of wealth from the middle class and poor, who rely on these programs, to the rich, who are already richer than ever. Don't let them get away with this heist.
Guys, that's what it is. It's a heist. You're robbing from the middle class, from the working class. And what happens is, believe it or not, most people vote against their own interests. And why? Because they'll get a guy like Trump who divides the country. He gets you to start hating your fellow man. And it works very well. I mean, you see how it works. And part of what Trump's doing is, you know, virtually anything that Obama achieved or tried to achieve, Trump has tried to dismantle. And a big part of it has been the EPA. And guys, you know, we've heard Trump talk about clean water and clean air. And guys, I tell you, this next clip is going to be a redistribution of wealth. And when you find out how the Republican Party wants to put more money and more profits in the pockets of coal companies and energy, coal burning companies, you know, places like Duke Energy, where they can change the regulations. You always hear this on Fox News. It's the regulations. They're stifling us. No, the regulations are what's keeping our water and our air clean. And what is Trump doing? He wants to put more profit in the pockets of the people that run the power plants and the coal mines. And guys, guess what? It don't work. And we're going to show you, and we're going to show you what the people of this community are faced with. Why? So that the rich can have more. It's that simple, guys. And when you see these ash ponds, you're not going to be happy campers. And when you see what the people go through that live in this area and why, and especially when we have all this renewable energy, wind and solar that we can easily rely on, we don't have to burn this garbage anymore. So guys, we're going to play this, and I tell you, this stuff is bad jazz, and you're going to see how it affects the people in the community. So Judy, clip number 15, please.
It's quiet, it's safe, it's a family atmosphere.
Danielle Bailey Lash grew up in Walnut Cove, North Carolina. The tranquil town of just over 1,000 people sits right along picturesque Ballew's Lake.
The lake, that was a big reason to move into this area?
Dream location, it had everything that we needed, and the price was right.
The price was right because just over those trees is the Ballew's Creek Steam Station, one of Duke Energy's largest coal-burning power plants. And one of the realities of coal-burning plants is that you need a place to dispose of the waste. And that traditionally has meant coal ash ponds, like this. It may look like a beautiful lake, but it is basically an unlined pit in the ground with millions of tons of ash. Mercury, cadmium, arsenic, contaminants associated with cancer, right in Danielle's backyard. In 2009, Danielle began experiencing headaches.
And I went to the hospital, and they told me that I had a brain tumor. And they weren't lying. They said it was the size of a drink box right over here.
Can I take a look again?
Sure.
She was diagnosed with stage 3 astrocytoma, brain cancer.
What do you think caused all this?
I'm 100% sure I know what caused it.
I wonder what it could have been.
Of course, that is impossible to know for certain. Her doctors can't say. There have been too few studies to make any conclusions. But I wanted to see the water myself.
This is the beautiful Catawba River. These waters travel from the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains some 400 miles out to the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. All along the way, you're going to see these coal-powered plants, as this one you see right over here behind me here. Some have called this river the most electrified river in America as a result. And with those plants, you see coal ash ponds. And that's a concern, because if there's seepage from these coal ash ponds into the river, or the river becomes inundated with contaminants because of a break in the dam, that would devastate the drinking water for some 2 million people living in this area.
Riverkeeper Sam Perkins is giving me a tour of what he calls the capital of coal ash.
You're looking up about 100 feet that has built up over the years holding back all that ash.
Look how blue the ponds are, guys. They almost look good.
Freezing, thawing, expansion, contraction, and you have dam safety issues.
In fact, in 2008, a break in the dam at a Tennessee Valley Authority power plant inundated the surrounding area with over 1 billion gallons of ash and sludge. In early 2014, a corroded pipe at Duke's Dan River Station here in North Carolina released up to 39,000 tons of coal ash into nearby waters. More than 3 years later, the state still warns against eating some of the fish because of high mercury levels.
We quickly sprung into action to not only address what was happening at that particular site.
I met up with Duke Energy's Aaron Culbert at one of their sites.
We also set up an entire task force to review all of our other facilities and make sure we didn't have that kind of risk anywhere else.
And can you say for sure that you do not?
We can't say for certain we've got every pipe, but I can say for certain that we have grouted many, many, many pipes that would be allow any chance of risk from the basins.
You don't know where all these pipes are. We don't know what's
Grouted
risky, what's
pipes.
not risky.
Can you believe
We can
this?
chase pipes all day long, but the ultimate way of making sure that we have safe closure is to remove the water and close these basins in a way that's federally approved by the EPA, and that's what we're really
Who's
working
going
to
to
do
pay
here.
for this, guys?
In 2015, the EPA
Look at
did
that
finally take
garbage.
action and began requiring straightforward measures. Test the groundwater, close contaminating coal ash ponds, place future waste in basins that have linings. Measures that Murray Energy lobbied against back in March of 2017.
You believe this, guys?
Murray's lobbyist, the new acting EPA chief, Andrew Wheeler.
The
I did
EPA
work for a coal
chief, right
company,
there.
and I'm not at all ashamed of the work that I did for the coal company.
According to documents and photos obtained by CNN, Wheeler arranged a meeting between his boss, Bob Murray, CEO of one of the country's largest coal mining companies, and Energy Secretary Rick Perry. They presented the secretary with an action plan for, quote, reliable and low-cost electricity, a plan that included rewriting coal ash regulations.
Low-cost electricity
that same plan
so
was
they
also
can make
sent to
more
the
profit.
EPA, the organization Wheeler now runs.
The EPA is in a rush to do things that will benefit these coal ash utilities, purely because of the influence of their trade associations and their lobbyists.
And this week, the first set of proposed rule changes were finalized. Among the changes, groundwater no longer needs to be monitored if the plant can prove that it is not polluting the aquifer. Our request to speak with Administrator Wheeler was declined. In a statement provided by the EPA, he said, quote, our actions mark a significant departure from the one-size-fits-all policies of the past and save tens of millions of dollars in regulatory costs.
Send tens
Duke
of
Energy is
millions of
steadfast that
dollars in
testing has shown that
regulatory
none of the coal ash
costs, of
contamination has reached public groundwater.
Testing continues to demonstrate that coal ash operations are not impacting private wells.
It's something Danielle has heard before. But when you live next to a coal plant and an ash pond, even if it is your dream home, you're always living in a bit of fear.
It was the dream. We're still paying for that dream, unfortunately, but I'll have to dream somewhere else.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN, Charlotte, North Carolina.
They saved tens of millions of dollars in costs. Guys, so what happens now? So now they could just dump this crap? They don't have to pay for putting it in the air? They don't have to pay to put it in the water? They just get away with it? They get to all these expenses they get away with? Guys, come on. What's the story? Could you imagine if any business in town started dumping its stuff in the middle of the street? They didn't pick up their garbage? Can you imagine what would happen? All right. Guys, Judy, how much time do we have left? 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Well, how do you like that? Well, you know what? The next clip we have is from Jimmy Kimmel. And guys, this is going to show you how foolish and how most of the people in America are really simple folk. And when it comes to a map, most of them don't even know where they are, where we are, where anything is. So guys, let's end up the show with having some good fun, and we'll see what the average American knows or doesn't know. So Judy, clip number 16, please.
So we came up with a test. The test is very simple. Went out on the street, we asked people who were passing by to name a country on a map. That's it. We had a map, we said name a country, any country, and here's how that went.
Name any country.
Name any country on this map.
Honestly, my geography is so horrible.
I can't name anything. Like
Try
nothing.
naming something.
Is it South Africa?
Nope.
Yeah, the country of Asia.
Nope. That's a continent, and
Oh,
that's
oops.
Russia.
Oh, damn. I'm silly.
That's okay.
Man, it's been a while since I've been in school.
That's okay. Any country on the map.
Africa.
That's a continent.
Country. Damn it.
How about a country in Africa?
I know South Africa is over here somewhere.
No, it's
it's
south.
down here, yeah.
Yeah, it's south.
Oops.
Can you name any country on this map?
Yeah. Africa?
That's a continent.
Oh, God.
Can you name any countries in Africa?
God. No, who knows stuff like that?
Can you name any country on this map?
Yes. Africa.
That's a continent.
Oh, country.
Greenland or Iceland or something?
That's Alaska. Any country.
No.
And on the entire map.
This is so horrible.
Where?
Well, what happened? Judy?
America.
Oh, there you go.
I would say this big one, but I'm probably wrong.
You're definitely wrong.
Okay.
Can you name any country on this map?
Oh my gosh. Shouldn't I be taught this in school? I would hope so. South America?
That's a continent.
Oh my God.
How about a country in South America?
Yeah. Honduras is here. Nope. Here. Somewhere here.
Nope. Can you name any country in Europe?
Is this one Europe?
No.
This one?
No. Can you name a single country in Africa?
Was this Africa?
No, again, that's South America.
No idea.
Can you name a country in South America?
Okay, this is South America.
Yes, can you name a country in it?
No, I can't.
Did you go to high school?
Yes.
Did you go to college?
Yeah, that's a sad part. Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, United States, Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea.
Oh, thank God. Well, if you didn't believe that children are our future before, now you do. Well done, everybody.
Guys, you know, when I was a kid, I was always very proud that I used to be able to name the 48 states, you know what I mean? I had to throw that in. Judy, are you going to run the credits now?
Hi, Rich, we're going to do it now.
Okay. And guys, I tell you, I want to thank everybody for helping us out today. I want to thank my son for coming down. It only took 226. Oh, here he is. Here's yours truly. Look at that, huh? Wow, that was great, Rich. Boy, he's solid as a rock, I tell you. And I want to thank Martino's Pizza.
Okay.
Marco hooked us up really nice. And guys, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but with Trump in office,
Say goodbye.
who knows? We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.